Welcome to the Family Beacon podcast from Minnesota Family Council with hosts Grace Evans and Moses Brattrud. Stay informed on the top stories on life, family, and religious freedom. Get the facts, stand for truth. Hello and welcome back to the Family Beacon podcast. My name is Grace Evans. I'm here with my co-host Moses Brattrud. We are so happy to be here today, you guys. This episode is going to be amazing. We are just doing a recap of season 1 of Family Beacon. That's right, season 2 is coming, which we are so thrilled about. We're going to be making some changes, all for the better, of course. We're going to talk about the origins of the podcast, kind of how we got started, our journey. It was Moses' idea, actually. How our dynamic on the podcast has improved, our top listened episodes, our favorite topics, and what's coming in season 2. So we have really a lot to cover in this episode, and we're excited to hear your thoughts. Don't forget, if you ever have thoughts on the podcast, you can reach out to us, moses@mfc.org. We'd love to hear comments, things you'd like us to cover in the future, pro-choice arguments you want us to debunk, you name it. Anyways, Moses, I think it's a long enough intro, huh?
Yeah, no. So I think it's good to start with how on earth did we come up with the Family Beacon name? What made us have the idea that it would be helpful to have a podcast on these topics? And I will say that, just not to put the cart before the horse, but the response has been so great. We are so grateful for the people who tune in every week on Anchor or Spotify or Facebook or YouTube or
Instagram
Apple
Squad,
Podcasts.
honestly.
And we do post our shorter clips on Instagram, on Facebook, and we're so glad for people who are on one of those platforms or all of them. Thank you so much. And so we do feel as we put this season to bed, as we take a little bit of time off, and not very long, to make some changes, which I think will make this better. It has caused Grace and I to reflect, why, how has this been so successful? And so where did it start? So it did start with me thinking about that one of the main problems in our society in Minnesota and across the country is that there is so much information that it is so difficult to find the truth. And this is obviously not my original observation. Everyone knows that, like 50 years ago, you had just a few options. There was NBC, CBS, and ABC, just the alphabet channels on the television, if you had television, and there was one or two local daily papers. That was where you got your news. And so here in the Twin Cities, maybe you had the Star or the Tribune. They were separate back then. And maybe you watched NBC. But now, not only the internet, but we have all these local and national and international news sources. My favorite example of this is something called the Epoch Times. And the Epoch Times has had this huge it just really exploded into the public consciousness, especially for people on the right. And people don't seem to realize that it's run by a Chinese cult called the Falun Gong. And they seem like nice people. I mean, their whole thing is the Chinese government is harvesting our organs. That's how they I know, it's crazy.
I haven't looked into this. This is news to me.
But you can that's news to me. Literally, I know people who subscribe to the Epoch Times and they get a physical newspaper from this
I didn't even know they did
Chinese
that.
cult.
Oh.
And it's actually not that bad of a newspaper. Honestly, they're pretty solid on some issues.
Some
they're
people,
really good on attacking the Chinese government and when they need to be attacked. What were we going to say?
Well, I had another thought, too, I want to say.
Yeah.
There's this book I was reading recently. I was rereading it. It's called Here Comes Everybody. Oh. And it's kind of getting at what you're about to get at. And I don't want to steal your thunder by any means, but I think you're good. Okay. I think what Moses is about to say is that suddenly in our digital age with Gen Z, the iPhone generation, and everything available to us, suddenly anyone can publish content at any time, right? So it used to be, it would have to go through a process, it would have to be edited, and then it would be filtered, and then finally be released. And it was hard to get your content out there, right? But now, every person has the ability to publish something without editing it, without filtering it, and upload it immediately to the web. And they automatically have an audience. Now, it might not be a huge audience, but they have an audience. And they have the potential of reaching multitudes of people. And so this online generation, an online way of networking and getting news out really has changed the dynamic. And so Moses and I were thinking through those things almost subconsciously. I don't think we put that exactly into words, but we were thinking through this. How do we reach the digital generation? How do we get our news out in a way that, other people suddenly aren't getting newspapers delivered to their doorstep very much. Instead, they're on Instagram. They're scrolling through, trying to get their news on there through Epoch Times, like you're saying. A lot of my friends follow that news source, and I wasn't aware of much of what you were saying. I don't follow them, but really, how can we utilize the tool that's before us and make sure also our content is quality? Because that's happened, there's been a lot of problems of what we talk about on the podcast here of we have to cut through the noise. There's so much noise around us on social media. People are saying this or saying that. Nothing's certified. And even the fact checkers, so-called, are fact checking things that oftentimes don't need to be fact checked, and the fact checkers are wrong. And so why we birthed this podcast, so to speak, was out of a desire to give you the facts so you can cut through the noise and get the truth and stand for that truth.
Yeah, and so we do that by taking the topics that matter to people in Minnesota and around the country, and we do have listeners from everywhere, which is amazing. We just saw that someone is listening to our podcast from the island of Jersey, which is in the English Channel between France and England. So hi.
Hello.
And so like we take these issues that matter to Christians in Minnesota. Mm-hmm. And because Grace and I are Christians, and because we are because we work in this pro-life, pro-religious freedom space, we sometimes know what those stories are easily because we're involved with them.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're making those stories.
Yep.
And then we can bring that to you in, as Grace said, hopefully a way that's digestible and cuts through the noise. Because as the title of the book Grace referenced, I love that. Here comes everybody.
Yeah,
like you're hearing from your second cousin how they think that people who are unvaccinated deserve to die, or things like that, right? So like you are,
or like that poor man who was taken off of the donor list recently for his heart transplant just because he was unvaccinated.
Don't get me started on that.
Yeah, so sad, so tragic.
Really?
There's just
So
everyone's
angry.
sharing their opinions, and so. We wanted this to be an asset for you because so many people listen to podcasts. I listen to podcasts and I love them, but so many of them are biased. Even the ones that I agree with, there's definitely a bias. I mean, every podcast has a bias. They have their inherent belief systems, and we're very open about our bias. This is a Christian podcast, and you know that if you're coming to it. You don't have to be a Christian to listen. In fact, we welcome people that don't hold the same religion as we do. But we're very open about what our so-called bias is.
I mean, if you're for abortion, we're going to be biased against you. I mean, we would love to talk to you.
But I would love to have you here on the podcast and listen to what we're saying, because I think that's so important. I mean, breaking out of those echo chambers, that's a whole nother concept that we could go on about forever. But because of this world, online world, here comes everybody. Everyone's posting. Everyone has content. It's really easy to block out a lot of people that you disagree with and think aren't reputable and just follow the people that you agree with. And then you're stuck inside this echo chamber where you're only listening to people who agree with you and you're not really growing as a person. So I think it's really important that your viewpoints are challenged. Yeah. Obviously, listen to news sources you agree with, which is why we're here. But also, look at what New York Times is saying. Yeah. See what they're saying.
Challenge yourself. And don't shut out people who disagree with you. I do. I find that I try to give myself a balanced diet of news, and for me that means looking at right-wing, left-wing sources, and then sources that are more reputed to be centrist, like say The Economist. So that's something. And I want to say one more thing about our approach. And then I'm going to ask you what your favorite episode that we've done is. But one more thing about our approach is that it's a combination of sort of faith and reason. So we're trying to bring our faith and apply our faith. For Grace and I both, our faith is the single most important thing. It's why we're here. But then we're not just, this isn't just a devotional podcast. There are many of those and they're great, and I hope you find one that you like. But we're also talking about coming to the issues of the day and using our reason that God gave us to process those things, to process all the noise that's out there, and use our reason as like a hot knife that is able to cut through the butter of all the different news stories that are out there. Is that a good analogy?
That's kind of funny. I totally agree, and I think I want to use just a brief example to illustrate what you just said, because obviously Moses and I, since we are Christians, religion is the basis. Our religion is the basis of why we believe everything. It's the very foundation. And so, for example, with the issue of abortion, the primary reason that I'm pro-life is because of my religion. And why is that? If you hear that on the podcast, you might think, oh, that's a weak argument. Why would you say that, Grace? The winning proposition is to not talk about religion. And that's very true in many circumstances, but I wouldn't have a moral code without my religion. Mm-hmm. If I didn't believe in Christianity and believe in the Lord, then I wouldn't have a moral status to say, well, murder is wrong. People deserve to not be murdered, and people have inherent value because every person is made in the image of God, because they have something within them that can't be taken away if they're not more human if they develop more or because of what they contribute to society. And
right.
So this is all based on that foundational belief. And if I didn't have a moral code, then I don't think my position on abortion would not be strong, because there are plenty of people out there that just say, well, I agree with you, abortion is murder, but what's so wrong about that, right?
Yes.
That's becoming a more mainstream view. And so because our beliefs, like this example, are grounded in Scripture, we really have a backbone to stand on. And so, of course, you need to have the facts, you need to have the science, and science affirms what we believe, right? That life begins at conception. And I don't want to tangent too much on this, but that's really the goal of the podcast, is we have this foundational belief in the Lord, and that shapes and strengthens our arguments from reason.
Absolutely, yeah. And just to reinforce what Grace said, when we did pro-life arguments a few episodes ago, we rebutted the strongest pro-abortion arguments, or I should say Grace did. And we didn't talk about God much. We really didn't. We really just gave a science-based, rational rebuttal
arguments
to all those
from logic.
arguments. Yeah, because that is the common ground that we can have with when you're having a conversation with an atheist. But as Grace said, that fundamentally we are pro-life because Jesus comes first, and then everything else flows from that. If we're doing our jobs right.
And objective truth, even, because we pursue objective truth, right? That's a whole goal of this, is to spread the truth so you can stand for that truth. And because of our religion, we know that objective truth exists, and we pursue that truth. But if we didn't believe in a religion, if we didn't believe in the Lord, I wouldn't have a basis for that objective truth.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of people who don't believe in Jesus, I'm going to ask about Grace's favorite podcast episode, and I know which one it is. Yes. But tell us which episode was your favorite and why.
My favorite podcast episode, well, I loved the pro-choice ones we did where I debunked common pro-choice arguments from a pro-life perspective, like we just mentioned. Good. Loved those. Definitely listen to those. It's a good resource for you. And I got so passionate in that episode. But my all-time favorite, I have to say, was the one in which we talked about Satanism and the link between Satanism and abortion. And as you can tell, my favorite topic is talking about life, because I'm so passionate about that. Right. But it was really interesting, and honestly, it has been so helpful and relevant to my daily life, which might sound weird, but I'm going to give an example of that. I was just in D.C. for the March for Life, National March for Life, which was amazing, by the way. So cool. Encouraging.
I'm so jealous.
Biggest March for Life ever. Over 150,000 people, which is so cool. But anyways, point being made, I was there in D.C. I was about to get on the metro, and a Satanist walked up to me. He had the little Satanist logo on his shirt. And
like a pentagram?
Yeah, if that's what it's called.
Like the star?
Yeah, the star.
Oh,
yep.
Really?
Yeah, he walked up to me, and I didn't notice it right away, which I feel like I should have. But it was kind of faded, so... Yeah. And he said, hey, do you live around here? And obviously, I immediately was on the alert, because I'm a girl, right? I'm a young girl in D.C., and I was carrying my pro-life sign. Pro-life is pro-woman, the future is anti-abortion, a few different ones in my hand, because I was getting on after the march. Mm-hmm. And I said, oh, no, I don't live around here, but I know my way around, making sure he knows that I know where I am. And I didn't want him following me anywhere, obviously. And then he said something along the lines of, I don't want to misquote him, so this isn't word for word, but he said, like Satanism has a lot to say about what you stand for or something. And I was just thinking, like, yeah, I know.
Okay,
and
neckbeard.
I was like, yes, I've done.
Seriously, these flipping idiots coming up. Do you, I'm sorry. Like, the idea that you would just, okay. Did he have a fedora?
No, he didn't have a fedora. I think he had a beard, if I remember right.
Okay. I just hate these, massively online Satanists who like, you believe that life begins at conception? Well, Satanism has so much to say about that. I'm sorry, that just makes me so angry.
I think, if I remember correctly, I think he said something about his cult, and it was something about just how abortion is a ritual that's sanctifying.
Oh,
and,
there we go.
And
it's a satanic ritual.
And
from the lips of Satanists.
And that's what their website says. In that episode, I debunked it. And I was just thinking to myself, like, I inwardly laughing the whole time, because I know. I did a whole episode on this, dude. I have read your website. I know you think this is sanctifying. I know you think you're on the side of science. I know you think that this empowers women. And I know that you have all of these hypocrisies where you claim to be on the side of science. You claim to be on the side of protecting women, and you don't. But so I just kind of smiled to myself, and what I don't remember if I've said these exact words. Again, I'm just the general thing of what I said was, well, you're going to find out you're wrong someday. I hope it's before you die, basically. I didn't say before you die, but I hope you find out in this world or something like that.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I walked away. Thankfully, there wasn't any violence. I think he walked away and he yelled something, but it wasn't. It could have been a lot worse.
Yeah.
But anyways, so that Satanist episode, and also people have just been bringing that up to me, have been saying, oh, have you heard about this link between abortion and Satanism? Or sometimes there's a lot of Christians out there that are very staunchly pro-choice that I know online that follow me, and it's I think it's really telling if you call yourself a Christian and you're advocating for the very same things that the Satanists are advocating for. If you're a Christian and you're on the side of Satanists, you should ask yourself why. And I said that in the episode. But I don't want to rehash the whole episode. Go listen to it. Awesome episode.
It was a great episode. Yeah.
So your favorite episode, though?
My favorite, honestly, I would say it's any episode where we've talked about Dobbs v. Jackson. And I think maybe specifically the episode we did on December 10th, which was called Behind the Scenes at SCOTUS. So that was after the live hearing, the Supreme Court oral arguments for the Dobbs v. Jackson case. Because not only is that one of the biggest signs of hope that we've had for the pro-life movement in a long time, and just such a energizing and amazing thing, but just to be able to bring information that I know isn't being reported on, like Dobbs v. Jackson was being reported on, but that episode in particular, I felt like I was able to bring a lot of research on that case and how it actually went at the Supreme Court. What did Justice Sotomayor say? What did Chief Justice Roberts say? What did Justice Kavanaugh say? And what does that mean for the court's final decision? Of course, we don't know what the decision is yet, and we can't predict. It's very dangerous to make predictions about the Supreme Court, because they do they try to make that very difficult for one reason. But just that episode was my favorite.
A really good one.
And every time we talked about Dobbs v. Jackson, I've just been so encouraged. When we had Renee on to talk about that, Renee Carlson, our attorney.
Dynamite. We love her.
She is dynamite, and we will have her on again.
Yeah, we'll have True North Legal on the screen here and in the description, so you can check it out.
Yes, and that'll be coming in season 2.
Yes.
I want to tell you, our viewers and listeners, which episodes were the most watched and listened to. And so I'll give you the 4 most watch and listen to, and I'll count down. So the 4th most listened to one was on critical race theory, and that's not really surprising because it's just such a big topic, and Grace and I were both a little bit nervous about addressing it because both of us have done the work. Like, we have both read and we've both
How to be
read books about this.
White fragility.
Yep. I've read both of those books, and I've done my homework, and yet I hate it when I see I see left-wing people scoffing at people on Twitter and saying, right-wing people, they're inveighing against critical race theory. They can't even spell critical race theory. Also, critical race theory is something that's only taught at the college level. And it's just so, you hear these talking points on CNN. It's just unbelievable. And then of course, sometimes you do see
CNN is where I get
people,
my talking points personally.
Right.
Sorry.
No, yeah, exactly. That's your first mistake. So, and then you do hear occasionally conservatives saying something that, well, this is critical race theory, when it's completely unrelated to critical race theory. So there is misconceptions. So we could have easily fall into those misconceptions. And I'm sure we did make some mistakes in that episode. But overall, we hit the topic in a way that people really resonated with, and that's why it was our fourth most viewed episode.
When we post clips every week on our Instagram, short clips. When we posted the CRT clips, those performed so well. You guys really engaged with that, reposted it, shared it, and sent it to your friends and family, because I think it really resonates with people when we're facing this on all fronts, it seems like sometimes, and so many people are buying into it. And just we're able to, I hope and I pray that it was just a succinct breakdown of what it looks like, how we can approach it from a gospel issue. And of course, there's so much more we could say on that, and we will do future episodes on that. But I think it was a really good introduction for maybe those that weren't super familiar or hadn't approached it from a biblical perspective before.
Yes, absolutely. So the third most viewed episode was on vaccine mandates. Yep. And again, not surprising. And that was one that generated some controversy, of course, because there are people who think, well, the Christian position, you have to be for vaccine mandates, and that's thankfully that was a very minority of the responses we got. Most of the responses were, thank you so much for standing up for this. And I will just say, our organization, if you had told me in 2019 that we would be standing up against government vaccine mandates, I would be like, this is insane. What happened? And now we are faced with the government trying to mandate people to get a vaccine. Yep. And in terms of researching for that episode, we discovered the government has never mandated vaccines that have been in circulation for as short a time as the COVID-19 vaccines have. And it's just it's such a crazy thing, which is why after we filmed that episode, the Supreme Court threw out the Biden administration's vaccine mandate for large employers. And so hitting on that issue, but then of course many individual people in Minnesota and elsewhere have mandates from their employers, even if they're not being forced to by the government, their employers are still enforcing that. So we hope that episode, we know that episode provided helpful information because of the response that we received, which has been amazing. Second most viewed episode was on the scandal in the Minnesota GOP last summer, and that was really interesting. And I think common denominator is that we just we were able to really talk about something that was very new and on people's minds, and so people were clicking on that, and that was kind of a really sad episode. I mean, really, I don't want to see the parties just descend into what happened. And I'm happy to say, just a little update is that the GOP did elect someone to be the new chair, his name is David Hand, the Minnesota GOP chair, and he is, first of all, just he's got a much better reputation as a long-time leader. He's a former state senator, and in fact Renee worked for him.
Oh yeah, I think she actually mentioned that too.
Yeah. So our attorney Renee was worked for him when he was in the state legislature. And I've had a chance to meet him. Seems like a great guy. And so the point is the party is moving forward. We are nonpartisan, but we like to see the parties not being led by sex criminals.
Oh yeah, we absolutely stand.
Or people who affiliate themselves with sex criminals. So that was a good thing.
And I think it was good that our audience needs to know that we're willing to call the right and the left. Both radical sides need to be called out, and we're not afraid to criticize both. And I think we said that in the podcast too.
Exactly.
So that was really good. So our all-time top performing episode, Moses.
Tell us. Drum
roll. Can I tell you? Okay, it was the title of the episode is Texas oppressing woman, question mark. And guys, I think I came up with that title, or maybe you did. It was probably collaborative.
Grace comes up with our best titles. I think that's pretty fair to say.
But I thought the title is so funny, first of all, because it's so obviously untrue, because abortion oppresses women, right? Not liberating them from the demonization of their children. That's not oppression. So anyways, that was a great episode to film, in the wake of everything happening in Texas. And we received such good support and thoughts on it. And I think the reason that it really resonated with people was because everyone was thinking about it at that time. So it was very relevant. And, most of our audience is very pro-life. That's probably the number one issue of most of our audience. And so I think whenever we do pro-life stuff, people really like to see that. And we're also very animated in the episode. So I think that's probably why it was the number one. Do you have more thoughts?
Oh, yeah. No, I think I absolutely do. Oh, yeah. I didn't get a chance to say what my favorite thing to talk about was.
Oh, yeah. On the podcast, yeah.
Yeah, so Grace's favorite thing to talk about is life. That's not surprising. If you've seen the podcast, that's the thing that gets her up in the morning. And I was thinking, like, what is that for me? And and there's so many issues, and life is a huge one. And I think mine is related to that, but it's probably the family. And I think being
Minnesota
a dad,
Family Council, Family Beacon.
Yes. We work for the Minnesota Family Council, so this is not shocking. But also, as a dad, as a husband, and having a new baby on the way, so I'm just really thinking about this right now. And also, one thing that's really been pressed home to me during the pandemic is how birth rates have just tanked, and I just like when you have a low birth rate. And that, by low, I mean below 2.1 children per woman. You have to have 2.1 children per woman, or society will die. And most countries in the Western world now are below that rate. And some countries, like South Korea, are down at like 1.3 children per woman.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
South Korea?
Not
Korea. North Korea? Wow.
North Korea is pretty low, too.
Yeah.
But yeah, South Korea and Japan have the lowest in the world.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, we'll have to talk more about that.
Yep.
So I don't think we have talked a little bit about fertility declines.
Yeah, we definitely talked a little bit about it.
But that is honestly like not just fertility decline, but the idea, basically pronatalism, kind of a big weird term, but that's my biggest issue. If society is not pro children, if individual people are not pro children, I just saw something on a blog about this 22-year-old girl who's getting her tubes tied so that she can never have children because she thinks that this is such a horrible world and it's a horrible crime to bring a child into the world. And that's just false. Oh. It's false, and not only that, but if you have enough people who believe that, and who have abortions,
and celebrities talk about that too, because we did that episode on Prince Harry and Meghan Markle.
Yes.
So that is making me think of that episode. I think that was one of our first ones. But it's really detrimental.
So people. And they're not actually not having children. They're just limiting themselves to 2, if I remember the story correctly.
And some people are having literally no children.
Yeah. And I just think that is...
Some people are not getting married either because they're scared.
Right. So and that's part of it too. The idea of people not getting married, not even getting into sexual relationships, honestly. Like people are just sitting at home on their computers alone and not getting married, not having children. Our society is... if that continues, we're going off a cliff. China's birth rate is declining so precipitously that if current trends hold, there will be more Americans than Chinese by 2100. Okay, for context, there are 330 million Americans and 1.4 billion Chinese people right now. So that's what birth rates can do to a society. Okay, so
I think it goes back though
a little bit.
No, that's really good, and I think it goes back to the fact that ultimately every person is relationship oriented, and we need relationships in our life. We're relationship driven people. Why is that? Again, it goes back to our Christian beliefs. Whether you're a Christian or not, you were made this way. You were made to have a relationship with people because you're made to imitate our Creator, right? And so we are first and foremost relationship people that are made for that. And so our society, much of it is throwing that away, doesn't want those relationships. And so that's really hurting our society as a whole. And I want to add on just slightly briefly, because when you said my favorite topic is talking about pro-life stuff, it's so true, but I immediately thought pro-children stuff. So I'm very much on the same page, because we did that one episode on how screens harm children.
Yes.
And I loved talking about that because I'm so passionate about that. I've read a lot on that, and children are the most victimized and oppressed group in the entire world. One of my favorite conservative commentators, Ali Stuckey, says that all the time, and I think that's so true because there's so many ways in which children are hurt and victimized by people that are older than them. And I'm so pro just protecting children in various ways, right? Protecting them from so many things that harm them. And so I love what you said, and I think it's great because I thought of that even before you said that. I'm obviously pro-life is the main way in which I fight for that, but pro-children in general. So
yeah, exactly. The issue does not end, as so many pro-abortion people like to say. The issue does not end when the child is born. Mm-hmm. Pro-life people are pro-life for the whole life, and including the whole of the childhood. Okay, so as we come in for a landing, this last episode of our first season, I can't believe we're here.
I know.
Honestly, it's just such an amazing
It's been
feeling.
so fun, honestly.
It has been so
I've loved
fun.
it. Like, this is our job, Moses.
This
Sometimes
is our job.
I think
can't
about
believe
that.
it.
It's my job is I'm a podcaster. It's not just this hobby thing. And I think I was saying that on Instagram recently, on my personal Instagram. Mm-hmm. I was like, yeah, so cause someone asked me what my job was and what I do. Mm-hmm. And I explained it. I was like, so I'm a podcaster. I'm a podcast host. And I kind of laughed because it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But it's also very serious. Like, what we talk about is very serious, and it's not just this little side gig thing we have going, and we film it in the garage. No, we do this for a living, you know?
Yes, yeah. I mean, we do a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, we do so many things. But
yeah, the podcast is
it's a great way to educate people.
Yeah, the people have told us that it's been really helpful to them, and that's just like why we keep doing this. Mm-hmm. Is because we're hearing that this is providing people information that they didn't have, or a take that they didn't have on an issue that they heard about, but they didn't know how Christians were mm-hmm. responding to it or something.
Yeah. So what's coming in season 2, Moses? Because I mean, we have a lot of stuff planned. I'd like to tell our audience some of the things, maybe not everything. Yeah. They got to be a little surprised.
Well, okay, this is fun. I don't know if you're watching. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's obvious. It wasn't necessarily obvious.
Wait, are we? No, I don't know if we should spill the beans though, Moses.
No, I'm going to spill the beans.
No, we can't spill the beans.
I'm going to spill the beans.
Okay.
So like, if I don't know if you've noticed this, maybe it's really obvious, but this background is animated. So there isn't actually.
This is a green screen.
It is a green screen, mm-hmm. and so and that has been great. We're so grateful for our videographer, Jack, mm-hmm. who's given us this really awesome professional-looking background.
And I love the background, too.
I do love the background. But we're going to, because that requires so much video processing time, and we're going to move to a actual physical backdrop. So that's going to be awesome. I think it's going to look great. More details when you tune into Season 2. Another thing is that we're going to just have better audio because we're just going to have a better audio setup. So
I think we're getting rid of the headphones and just going to have the
we might be getting rid of the headphones.
That's my vote, guys, just because I know this is so petty and probably half of you guys are going to laugh, but it messes up my hair, and I want my hair to look normal on the podcast. I don't know. I'm excited for that, and I'm rooting for that. And then, we have a few other things. We might have a new... Okay. In my defense... Moses does some really weird things too. Like today I walked into the office, I walked past the door, and he pops out at me and he goes, boo, and he scared me and I screamed. Like, this is what I endure at work.
I'm pretty sure that is normal, whereas not wearing headphones because it messes up your hair is not normal.
Wanting your hair to look good when you're broadcasting to tons of people isn't normal.
Did you almost say millions of people?
I said tons of people. I was going to say a multitude, but I think I already said that. Then I was like, wait, I can't say the same.
Lots of people. Not millions yet. Help us hit the, with your 5-star review on Apple could help us hit the millions mark. Okay, and we do want to say one more thing go ahead. We will have our new Assistant Director of Public Policy, Becca Delahunt. She will come and join us
One
on
of
the
my
podcast.
Close friends. Love her.
She is awesome. She's absolutely going to take the Capitol by storm.
Girl power is real.
I will not repeat that, but she is entering the battle for life, family, religious freedom, and I'm so amazed. I'm so excited to see what she will do. Yeah. So, from Moses and Grace, from the Fortress of Sanctitude in Minneapolis, Minnesota, this has been Season 1 of the Family Beacon from Minnesota Family Council, where you can get the facts so that you can stand for truth. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in Season 2.
Go comment Grace would be better CEO. Bye.